It seems pretty clear by now that one of the greatest benefits of the internet in education is the type and amount of resources that teachers now have almost immediate access to. And we're talking about resources from informational resources to videos, to lesson plans, worksheets, project ideas, and of course educational applications or apps are ever increasing as well, developed by both commercial sources as well as amateurs, independents. The question that a lot of teachers must face, though, as they're accessing different types of resources online is whether or not the resources are any good and whether or not the resources could have a positive impact on what they're trying to accomplish in the classroom. Now, this particular project asks you to go to a specific website managed by Common Sense Media and identify an educational application from the recommended programs that they provide access to and evaluate the potential of a specific application in your current or future practice with a slight variation on how you're going to be asked to evaluate the application. So as you should also know by now, the purpose of this class is to help you learn skills and strategies for using technology to improve teaching, improve your teaching. And the projects designed to help facilitate the skills to help you meet that goal are broken up into 4 specific categories. And these are projects designed to help you see how technology can be used to improve instruction, to improve your ability to help build and sustain community, to help you manage the different aspects of being a professional educator, and also to help you identify resources that can contribute to your professional growth as you continually improve your instructional practice. Now, this current project is once again going to focus on ways in which you might use technology to improve the quality of your instruction. But it's also designed to help you have a better understanding of what some of the ways that technology can improve instruction, what do they look like in the first place? What are the things that I think, as your teacher, that I think need to be improved upon? So this project focuses on that big issue. And because it focuses on issues associated with specific ways that technology might be used to improve instruction and my view of the things that really need improving, I want to go back to the beginning of the class right now and just speak summarily about instruction. So you've probably seen this example before. I want to talk about instruction, and I'm going to use as this really quick example the fact that I want to talk about instruction in a very broad sense. So here we have a little tiny creature who comes into the world and still has a lot to learn in their life, and it has always been amazing to me to see how much a little person learns in the first few years of their life. And of course, one of the most marvelous things that you can observe, or that I observe watching, is a little creature within the span of 5 or 6 years going from a tiny little baby who hasn't learned how to do many things to, in 5 or 6 years' time, can perform many skills, many sets of skills, not the least of which is, for many people, the ability to read. And so a baby learns how to read because, well, a young person learns how to read, excuse me, because that young person has a variety of experiences, of instructional experiences throughout their life that result in their acquisition of skills, knowledge, and attitudes associated with, in this case, with reading. So the experiences that a person has to facilitate a specific set of learning skills, those experiences collectively we can call instruction. And it applies not just to reading, but it applies to anything that people learn. It can apply to somebody who goes within the span of a few years learning how to hold a screwdriver, and at some point later in their life, through a variety of instructional experiences, they have the capacity to troubleshoot, replace, and maintain a one-stage induced power vent assembly for a Train XBTM M5 at 230 volts. That's a little HVAC reference there, but hopefully you get my point. So people learn through experiences that can be sort of broadly characterized as instructional. And what are the what are the components of those experiences that people have? What are they? What do they look like, whether it's formal or informal? Well, I like to characterize the different pieces of what those experiences look like that help somebody learn something. I like to characterize it using this particular graphic. I'll zoom in a little bit. So this graphic, which is in the course notes, reflects a picture of all the specific components that constitute an effective instructional experience. And when you look at it this way, it looks like it might be a formalized sort of procedural set of experiences. But in reality, of course, formal or informal, it can be pretty messy. Now, in this project that you're going to accomplish now, I'm going to ask you to examine how technology, a specific piece of technology, might be able to be used to help accomplish a specific instructional strategy that I believe is an area that needs improving. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those areas are in just a moment. But what you see on the screen right now is something that you can download from the project page, and it is a comparison of some general instructional strategies that are addressed by different instructional theorists. And I call these are very common models or strategies, and I do include in this representation, I include what Radford University, what Radford School of Teacher Education and Leadership promotes as kind of a generic overall lesson planning model. But it's situated next to all of these other models. And one thing that you can learn about when you read through the different components and compare the different components at different stages of instruction is that some of the suggested strategies really kind of run the gamut from what could be considered an instructionist perspective to what could be considered a constructionist perspective. So you'll see strategies in the instructionist or that would sort of speak to an instructionist perspective, words like input, which is the teachers inputting information to the students, and that includes explaining things, providing examples. Those are strategies that are part of what could be considered the activity part of a lesson plan. Constructionists might view the activity a little bit differently and characterize strategies as exploration-oriented before things get explained or labeled, that kind of thing. So just know that when you look at these strategies and you compare them, there are a lot of similarities, but there could be very different approaches depending on what types of skills you're facilitating and how you see the arrangement of instructional events for your students. I do want to point out, though, very, very clearly that though instructional strategies, no matter what model you follow, the strategies themselves are just the ingredients that the individual ingredients. That listing of strategies are individual ingredients. They do not reflect necessarily what a rich, meaningful, excellent learning experience is collectively. The synergism of all those activities put together, mixed together, put into the oven, baked, and it becomes something delicious. So again, I believe that in order to go from a list of ingredients to an experience that is not only instructionally effective, but also magic and magical in the sense of doing a much better job today than was done yesterday, and accomplishing instructional goals that are really big and powerful and important. Those are addressed in what I call the areas for improvement. And so when you look at this document for the project and you see the comparison of the different instructional models, the different lesson planning models, if you will, you're going to see on the far right-hand column a listing of the areas that I'm going to have you focus on for this project. And those areas of improvement I'd like to speak a little bit more about. There's actually about 10 of them or so that I just want to speak to, and I'll be very quick, and I have more information about these in the course notes, so know that I'm going to just sort of provide a focused overview of some of these strategies, because I'm going to have you think about these when you identify and evaluate an educational application for the course project. So let's talk about, just real briefly, about some of the ways in which I'm going to have you focus on improving an instructional introduction. And I believe, one thing you'll notice when you look at all of the instructional models in the overview, when you look at the comparison of models, you will notice that communicating the course objectives or communicating the lesson objectives are part of a good introduction. In almost any model, that's good practice, communicating the objectives. But there's something really important that needs to be considered before you sit down to communicate the learning objectives. Now, currently, well, I'm going to tell you what I think is important about that. But currently, there are a lot of publications, and there is a lot of talk about ways to improve teaching by focusing on how people teach. How? Brain-based learning. 6 steps for brain-based learning. Interesting idea, because I'm not sure what non-brain-based learning is. It's common to have vision or commitment statements from public schools that say they want to develop students' learning skills. And to help develop learning skills and address brain-based learning, you're going to need, obviously, brain-based teaching. Again, addressing strategies for how you teach, brain-targeted teaching models, differentiating instruction in the regular classroom. Again, that is an example of a collection of resources designed to address how you learn. Teaching digital natives. How can you teach better? How can you teach more effectively? But none of that addresses what you should be teaching. Even multiple intelligences addresses how and not necessarily what. But one of the things you're going to learn about in this with this project, I'm going to have you focus on not so much how you might teach differently, but what. And there are a lot of resources online to help you better understand how you can look at the what question differently. The Partnership for 21st Century Skills is a great resource that addresses emphasizing and focusing skills that go beyond typical academic skills. Skills in the areas of creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, media literacy. The International Society for Technology and Education's educational technology standards address a collection of resources and ideas surrounding not how you can teach better, but what you should be teaching. And I think those are great conversations to have. And those are, when you go to introduce a new learning experience, clearly communicating what you want the learners to learn and ensuring that what you want them to learn is important, is worth learning, that is an improvement right there. And so that's going to be something that gets emphasized in this project. Also, communicating conceptual big pictures. That's part of improving an overall introduction. A lot of models discuss connecting what is about to be learned with what has been learned previous. And absolutely, that's a great strategy. But one good way to help facilitate that is to create some conceptual big pictures that are regularly communicated to the learners. Like the one that you see right here on the screen. This is an example of a big picture that I used to have in my biology classroom when I was a biology teacher, and I would make reference to this picture before and after every single discrete learning experience that I had. This big picture shows the sort of the conceptual organization of things in the world and how we have learned about things in the world. And it's kind of an organizational picture that was very powerful and made it easy to make such connections. So that's something that you're going to be focusing on. Another area, probably the most important, are some specific ways in which technology might be used to help address providing more meaningful and purposeful learning contexts. The notes communicate a model that I present regarding 3 broad categories of instructional contexts that teachers can help define within a learning experience. And these are broad contexts, but there are sort of sub contexts that fit into these categories and lots of overlapping. And there are so many good examples of how teachers today use technology to help define learning contexts that provide meaning and purpose to learning anything. There's some great examples of teachers using Google Earth in order to help students process and appreciate literature, which is just a wonderful idea. Great example of some third grade students creating a website for new students to help orient them to the school. So there the students are web developers creating an artifact that is useful and meaningful to students. There are real projects, real scientific projects that students can become trained in and can collect real data and input it and become part of real scientific investigations. That's a great context. The stock market game is a great example of a simulation where students learn about financial skills related to finance, skills related to economics by playing the real stock market, just using fake money. Also some great apps out there that can help define very creative contexts in many different and exciting ways. There's an app out there that lets students create their own virtual reality, augmented reality programs to kind of do anything they can think of about enhancing their environment digitally. Just some great examples there. There are also, we're also going to have you focus on ways in which you might use technology to provide scaffolding, collaboration, communication, facilitate communication and reflection. And just to sort of speed things up here, instead of just giving a lot of examples, I'll just jump ahead and say that there are also specific strategies that address how you define activities and how you promote practice and feedback. If you haven't been to Khan Academy, one of the things some people are really appreciate the tiny little nuggets of information delivery, but those information delivery, I don't think, is the real strength of Khan Academy. The strength at Khan Academy, to me, is the fact that it is just full of really well-organized practice with immediate feedback over some skill sets, and that is a wonderful benefit to learners. Technology addressing scaffolding, project management is a very important skill set that learners should become better at, particularly if they're going to be doing complex projects in their classes. And there are technology-related resources that can help model good professional development and help teach and maintain good professional development. Certainly, Wikipedia can provide a wonderful scaffolding for students who may not understand or have a background in certain information or examples that they would need to be sort of up to speed in a particular subject. Wolfram Alpha provides some great examples of how to solve problems, and that is it is quite an amazing web area. Of course, using rubrics, analytic rubrics to help evaluate learners. Their best benefit by far is to help learners self-evaluate as they go through a complex learning experience, and that kind of conceptual scaffolding can be invaluable. And finally, review. One of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do is to consider how technology might be used to help students do actual reviews, not just more practice, but an actual review. And that might include developing something where they communicate what they learned about a subject area, maybe even in a visual way, like you see here. This is an example of one screen from a Prezi that addressed elements. They might make concept maps as a way to help communicate what they learned, and how what they learned ties together with various concepts or various frameworks. You can poll your students. You can use technology to poll your students and ask them how prepared they feel for the upcoming exam. Have them assess their own level of confidence and then provide you with that feedback. So a good review promotes individual learners reflecting on what they learned, reflecting on so what, why is it important, and also reflecting on the applicability or relevancy of what they learned to what's going to come next in life for them. So a good review is an introspection. It's students looking into themselves and asking themselves what, so what, and now what. And technology can be used to help facilitate that. Of course, you don't need to use an electronic polling for that. You can have people raise their hands, or you can just have them contemplate. So this project involves you going out to a website, Common Sense Media, and you're going to search and identify an educational application that you are that I then encourage you to actually download, actually interact with, and then you're going to write up an evaluation of it. And hopefully you'll be able to identify how that application might be able to serve the purpose, an effective instructional purpose in an area that reflects something that can improve teaching overall, and certainly improve your own teaching overall.